What's up, Kingwood students? It is good to be talking to you guys again. Looking forward to us being just a couple of days away from being able to be back together for our class times. Excited about that. Hope that you're excited that this Sunday we'll be back in class following morning worship. And then Wednesday night, a week from tonight, we will be back in the teen room. So a week from tonight, we're going to have a special worship night. It's going to be your family's all invited. Invite a friend, bring anybody you want. I'm excited to have some people back in the teen room and spend the night really focused on worship and prayer. And excited about that. And then the following week on Wednesdays, we'll start back our normal routine of having some worship time together and then splitting up for our small groups. So I'm excited about that, and you being able to be back around your friends and those that you're close with, and to be able to talk with and share life. Today we're going to talk about that, the importance of having some community and having people in your life that you trust and that you can depend on, and that you don't have to do everything by yourself, that it's okay to ask for and to get help from others. And we're going to look at today in the story of Nehemiah, how Nehemiah gets a lot of help from different people when it comes to what God has called him to do. So as we talk about goals today, we're kind of, to review, we've talked about these couple of lessons. We've said one big idea was that big difficulties can inspire God-sized goals. So even when we go and when we face big struggles, big challenges, big difficulties in our life, it can still inspire us to have God-sized goals. And whenever we need to overcome big difficulties, we can set God-sized goals to help us overcome those things. Then last week we talked about how you were designed for God-sized goals, how God made you special, you unique for specific things and specific goals. God has given you a calling in your life, so you are designed for God-sized goals. This morning, Vanessa Cruz is going to share our 1-minute overview of our lesson, and then we'll jump right into it and see today what our big idea is.
Have you ever had a goal that was so close to your heart? A goal that you've always wanted to try to achieve? Do you have it? Here's a question. Do you really, and I mean really, believe that God can help you reach it? But it depends on the goal, right? If it's a goal for you to date your celebrity crush or to be on a date with somebody, I don't know about that one. But if it's a goal that honors God and a goal that God has given you, God will see you through it. There's a guy named Nehemiah in the Bible who had a God-sized goal. And because this was a God-sized goal and he was being led by God, he knew that even when it was challenging, he wasn't going to give up. He learned something that all of us need to hear, that God gives us strength to pursue God-sized goals.
So the main message that I want you to take away from our lesson tonight is that God gives us strength to pursue God-sized goals. God gives you strength to pursue your God-sized goals. As we think about just some goals in general, we've been talking about setting goals, both regular, normal goals in our lives, as well as these bigger God-sized goals for the kingdom of God that couldn't possibly be done on our own. But before we think about all of those God-sized goals, let's talk about an us-sized goal. Is anybody's resolution for this year been to get physically stronger? When you think about getting physically stronger, there's some real practical goals that you can set, whether that's just a certain workout routine, whether that's a certain time, amount of time that you're going to spend dedicating to getting physically stronger. You can set all sorts of goals. You can set a goal for what area of your body do you want to get physically stronger. So what do you work on specifically with growing and getting stronger physically? As we think about that, as we think about getting stronger, this morning we're going to talk about how do we get stronger spiritually? How do we grow spiritually? And what are some things in our lives that are important for us to remember and to put in our lives? A couple weeks ago, we started talking about New Year's resolutions. And most people, after 2 weeks of the new year, have already given up on their New Year's resolutions. So what about you? We're about a month into January. Are there any resolutions that you're still working on? Any goals for this year that you're still doing? It's been said that by the end of January, fewer than 25% of people are still committed to some of their goals. But that's because goals are hard work. It takes a lot of commitment and dedication to achieve those things. And even if we make detailed plans and have great intentions, it still takes strength, commitment, and perseverance to follow through and achieve those things. I don't know what your goals are right now, whether they're spiritual goals, physical goals, mental goals, relational goals, school goals, or maybe even God-sized goals. But whatever those things are right now, I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is if you haven't already, you're gonna experience opposition, frustration, and at times a lack of motivation on your way to achieving your goals. But the good news is there's hope when your goals are too much to handle on your own. There's good news that you don't have to be alone in achieving your goals, that you can get help from others, and ultimately that you can get help from God in achieving those things that you set out. So when things get difficult, when you feel weak or discouraged, how do you keep pursuing those goals? How do you finish strong? Today we're going to look more at the story of Nehemiah and see what it has to show us about how do we face opposition to our goals. If you haven't been here the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the city of Jerusalem, the home of the Jewish people, and how long ago that city was destroyed by an enemy army. And then God promised the Jewish people that they would one day return to Jerusalem. And so those people slowly began to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. And although people are living in Jerusalem, Nehemiah learns that the city walls are fallen down and need repaired. Nehemiah wants to repair those walls to honor God and to protect his people. And so for months, Nehemiah plans, prays, prepares, makes his God-sized goals to rebuild the city walls. Last week we talked about how Nehemiah asked the king to help him and let him go repair those walls. And the king gives him permission. So Nehemiah recruits a team to help. But not everybody is excited about this idea. So today we get to Nehemiah chapter 3. And we're just going to kind of overview Nehemiah chapter 3, then dive into the text in Nehemiah chapter 4. But in Nehemiah chapter 3, once Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem, Nehemiah doesn't waste any time. He gets right to work. These goals are such a priority for him. He starts working right away, and he convinces tons of people that living in Jerusalem to work together and repair the city walls. There are so many people listed in Nehemiah chapter 3. I encourage you to take a minute, look through the chapter and see all of those people. It's too much for me to even mention just in this video, but you can look through Nehemiah and, I can't even pronounce all of these Old Testament names, but there's so many things that are, so many people that help. It says in verse 2, people from the town of Jericho works next to them. Beyond them was Zakur, son of Imri. The fish gate was built by sons of Manasseh. And then in verse 6, the city gate was repaired by Joiada, son of Pesah and Meshullam. Maybe I'm saying those right. And then next to them were Mattiah from Gibeon. And then you look down longer, Raphiah, son of Hur, leader of half the district of Jerusalem, was next to them on the wall. Next, there's Jedediah. Next, in verse 13, the valley gate was repaired by the people of Zanoah. In verse 14, the dung gate was repaired by Malchijai. I'm trying, guys. All right. In verse 15, the fountain gate was repaired by Shallum. In verse 17, next to him, repairs were made by a group of Levites. The whole point is a lot of people are helping. I only read like a couple of them. There's so many people that come and are helping Nehemiah rebuild the city and to rebuild these walls. People from all surrounding communities are all chipping in, all to rebuild this wall. So maybe you're wondering why all these boring details are in the Bible and why it lists all of these people that are helped. But here's the incredible thing that I see in the details. There are so many people involved. This wasn't a project Nehemiah could do by himself. No way, no chance. Nehemiah had to have help. It was a team effort, and we're going to see in chapter 4 how it's a team effort, but there's also some opposition. While there's all these people working on Nehemiah's side, there's also some people that are working against him. Let's read the text. Nehemiah chapter 4 verses 1 through 3 says, Sanballat was very angry when he learned that we were rebuilding the wall. He flew into a rage and mocked the Jews, saying in front of his friends and the Samaritan army officers, "What does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think they're doing? Do they think they can build the wall in a single day just by offering a few sacrifices? Do they actually think they can make something of stones from a rubbish heap? And charred ones at that?" Tobiah the Ammonite, who was standing beside him, remarked, "That stone wall would collapse if even a fox walked on top of it." So these guys come along opposing Nehemiah and what's going on. And what they are is they're bullies. These guys call them weak. They make fun of the people. They mock their quality work, saying that, look, even a fox could jump on that thing and knock it over. They mock their pain. They mock their beliefs. They try to crush their hope. But even though Nehemiah and his team were being obedient to God and trying to do what God wanted, they still had to deal with haters. They still had to deal with people who opposed them and were against them. And so next we get beginning in verse 4 and to see some reaction. "So then I prayed, 'Hear us, our God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back on their own heads, and may they themselves become captives in a foreign land. Do not ignore their guilt. Do not blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in front of the builders.' At last the wall was completed to half its height around the entire city, for the people had worked with enthusiasm." So we see here that there's so much we could talk about, but a few things I noticed is Nehemiah doesn't get distracted. He doesn't waste time fighting with these guys and going and trying dealing with all the opposition. He doesn't add to their drama. How many times do we get in situations where we add to the drama by responding in a certain way, whether it's a friend or a family member, that so easily we could just not get distracted when they poke at us or prod? But sometimes we just have to say something back. But Nehemiah doesn't do that. He doesn't add to the drama. He doesn't even respond directly to them. Instead, Nehemiah takes it to God. He asks God to hear his prayers and asks God to make it right. He's not afraid of being honest with God about what he's feeling. And he's feeling some pretty negative things towards those people that are opposing him. And he wants those guys to be punished, but he brings it to God. He doesn't get distracted by them. And Nehemiah also keeps going. He and his team kept building. No matter what those guys had to say, they get the wall in just a brief amount of time to already half of its original height. And everyone poured their hearts into it. That's amazing when you see it. And so as we look at the rest of the chapter, as we see, you can read through verses 7 through 23, and I encourage you to do that. But we see that after so much opposition, the strength of Nehemiah's team was giving out. These bullies were relentless, but Nehemiah was committed and he was strategic. So as these servants of God are working, struggling through what to do and how to rebuild this wall and how to face the opposition, in Nehemiah chapter 4, we see a few things that Nehemiah does to help strengthen his group and to weaken the opposition. The first thing is Nehemiah, again, brings it to God. Nehemiah, you can see, continually does this. Nehemiah is a man of prayer. Nehemiah is a man of faith. He's in constant communication with God from the very beginning, and this moment was no different. Nehemiah also prioritizes rest. He knew that him and his team needed rest. He knew they had worked so hard and so quickly rebuilt half the city walls that if they were gonna have the strength to keep going, they needed to take time as well to rest. So he finds a way for them to begin to work in shifts. Nehemiah also chooses community. His team is committed to protecting and supporting each other. So no matter what opposition comes their way, they know they still have each other. I pray that's what a youth group is for us, that it's that close community of people that no matter what the world says, no matter what struggles we face, we have a community of close friends and close mentors that we can turn to help us get through difficult moments in time. So Nehemiah chose community, and then Nehemiah just kept going. No matter what came their way, no matter what they faced, no matter what opposition there was, Nehemiah wasn't gonna stop. The job was a little more difficult than it was in the beginning, but Nehemiah keeps moving forward. He figures out his plan and he gets creative in order to continue the work. And I wish I could tell you that that was all of the opposition Nehemiah faced, but it doesn't end there, not even close. He faces more obstacles as we go through chapter 5 and chapter 6, both from his enemies and even from other fellow Jewish people. As they face this opposition, Nehemiah says in chapter 6 verse 9, they were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. But I prayed, now strengthen my hands. So Nehemiah, as he faces this difficulty, at one point even receiving terrifying letters and death threats, this opposition doesn't want Nehemiah to finish the wall. But Nehemiah reacts and simply prays for God to give him the strength to finish this work. When is a time that you've needed to pray for strength? We've all had different struggles. We've all faced different things. Maybe you're going through something right now. Maybe you need to stop and pause the video just for a minute and say to God, Lord, give me the strength. God, I pray for strength like Nehemiah did. Hundreds of years after Nehemiah lived, there was another man with God-sized goals. His goal was to spread the good news of Jesus to the whole world. His name was Paul. He was a leader of the early church. At some points during Paul's ministry, he writes a letter to a young man named Timothy, who he's mentoring, who becomes a close friend. And he writes to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, and he says to Timothy, for God did not give us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, of love, and self-discipline. We all know what it's like to face obstacles, to face different struggles. And it's never more true than when we're pursuing God-sized goals. God never promises that our lives as Christians are going to be easy, that we won't face difficulties. But here's what we are promised. We don't have to be afraid. We don't have to live lives of fear. God's Spirit will be with us. God has promised whenever we give our lives to Christ that the Holy Spirit enters our life and God's Spirit is with us. And God will also give us strength. God will help us overcome those obstacles like He's helping with Nehemiah. So along with strength, Paul mentions love and self-discipline too. When God gives us these goals, the challenge and oppositions that we face can actually be a gift. That resistance can help us strengthen our faith. It can help us grow in love. It can help develop grit in our lives. I saw Hallie did a video earlier this week about how God helps us even when we face struggles. God can help us through that. And even our struggles, those difficulties can help turn us to God. And I love that message from her because God can strengthen us even through resistance, even through struggles, even through opposition. It helps us grow in love. It helps us develop our faith. So like Nehemiah planned to experience, so Nehemiah knew that he would face that opposition. And we should know that we're going to face some opposition when we do what God calls us to do in our lives. But here's the good news. Here's the big idea for today. Here's the thing I want you to remember. God gives you the strength to pursue God-sized goals. We're going to watch a short video. This is from the 1992 Olympics. Derek Redmond is a runner, going to run a race. He's prepared and trained hard. He's 250 meters away from the finish line and his hamstring tears. You might have seen this video before. I might have even showed it to you guys before, but I love this illustration. So watch this video of Derek Redmond in the 1992 Olympics.
Tom Hammond and Craig Masbach back at Olympic Stadium in Barcelona, coming up to the men's 400-meter semifinals. Here Here are the lane assignments. Steve Lewis in lane 3. Top 4 to Wednesday's final. Steve Lewis in lane 3. Roberto Hernandez out quickly in 4. Now down the backstretch.
Ismael on the left of the screen is running very, very quickly. And inside of Lewis, Sunday Bada of Nigeria.
And Derek Redmond of Great Britain has pulled up with an injury. Redmond is out.
Derek Redmond, the British record holder, and an important member of that British 4x400 meter relay team, as he doesn't want anybody to help him.
It'll be Lewis to win in 44.50.
Look at this. He's going to try to finish his semifinal race. The British have a certain tradition of running, which you have to respect.
A bizarre finish to this first semifinal in the men's 400 meters. Derek Redmond of Great Britain pulled up with an injury halfway down the backstretch. He's fighting off those trying to help him to finish the race in his lane. And now the pain too much. Swelling throughout Olympic Stadium as Redmond, with assistance this time, approaches the finish line he had wanted so desperately to reach. That is the Olympic spirit.
At some point, we're going to face opposition that threats us to keep us from our goals. Opposition can feel overwhelming at times. It's not an easy thing to go through, especially when we're alone. But if we're following Jesus and chasing a God-sized goal, we don't have to ever be alone. God is always with you. God will give you the strength. God will help carry you through to the end of the race when you need Him. When you need to put your arms around Him and just lean on Him and you can't hardly even stand anymore, God is there. And then on the other side of us, holding us up, is our church family, that community like Nehemiah had, to hold each other up and to help each other finish the race and keep going in our walk with God. So what's one of your goals? What are you thinking about right now? Whether that's a God-sized goal or whatever it is, no matter what you face, no matter what opposition or difficulty or discouragement you might face, you can do it. You can achieve those goals. God is on your side. Your church family is on your side. We might go through struggles, but here are some basic things that we can do that help give us that strength to pursue those goals. Number one, just take it to God. Nehemiah is a man of God. Nehemiah prays constantly. We should do the same thing. We need to be people of God who bring everything to Him. We also need to choose community. We need close people in our lives that help us and strengthen us in our faith walk. We need to choose community. And I know in a time of a pandemic, that's a little bit harder to do than ever. But choose community. Find close people that you can talk to about whatever is going on in your life. Choose rest. Don't be afraid to stop and to pause and to take time for yourself and to take care of yourself. We all need those moments and those times of rest to renew our spirits and to help us finish the race. Also, don't get distracted. Don't be worried about all the opposition that you're going to face. Don't be worried about what people are saying on your right or on your left, but stay focused on God. Don't get distracted by what's going on in the world around you. And also keep going. Like Nehemiah does, no matter what opposition comes, he He stays true. He continues the race. He keeps building the wall. Keep going in your God-sized goal, and God is going to go with you, and God is going to help you through. So whatever your goal is that requires God's strength, know that He's on your side. Know that He's helping you. And do you believe that God will help you reach that goal? If your goals honor God and are given to you by God, then God is going to help you achieve it. You can see from the story of Nehemiah, you can see from the lessons from Paul and Timothy, that God gives us the strength to pursue God-sized goals. How are you pursuing Him in your life? How are you setting goals? How are you working to achieve those things? Thank you guys for joining me for another week. I'm excited that we don't have to do videos anymore. I'm excited that we can be back in person. So this next Sunday, I'm excited that we can be back in person. So this next Sunday, we're going to be wrapping up this lesson, this idea on Nehemiah and setting these God-sized goals. So Sunday, we'll kind of talk through that one more time, and I'll introduce you for our theme of February and what we're going to be focusing in on throughout the month of February. So I look forward to seeing you on Sunday following our morning worship for our Bible class time, and being able to be back together again in person and be able to talk to your friends for a little while and just have some fellowship, and to be able to choose that community like Nehemiah did. I also look forward to a week from tonight and being able to really have a time of worship to hopefully just reignite, to refuel us, and to get us going in our relationship with God again. So I look forward to seeing you Sunday, and look forward to a time of worship together Wednesday night, a week from tonight. So I encourage you, bring your family, invite some friends, and let's have a great night together on that night. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching us set God-sized goals like Nehemiah did, and watch how God works and moves in your life this week. Have a great week, and we'll see y'all Sunday.